Here we are, live for yet another week of Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout. And we'll kick off straight away in the traditional fashion. Bill, what have you been up to this week?
I've been doing some writing, looking at how a knowledge base fits into search results and answers them. And I just found a patent that fits with that really well, that talks about images and how they might generate natural language descriptions for images.
Right, natural language descriptions. So they must use LSI, right?
Oh, likely.
Yeah, see, why even bother, man? Like, why do you even, like, you know, it was, I could feel it coming. But,
I mean, yeah. There's something latent to that.
Yeah, the joke was.
Yeah. One of these days, I'm going to do a picture of one of the giant tree men from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Who died because it's late in semantics.
No, just no. You know, it's like it was David Brown or someone was telling jokes all morning on Facebook, and the worst one was, what do you call two monkeys that are sharing an Amazon account? Prime mates. Oh no! I was like, no, bro. No. Oh, and I don't know. You know, okay, no, I'll do this one off the air because it was even worse. But it had to do with the pens, and I'll just leave it there. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, while we're on the subject of two monkeys on a screen, what have you been up to this week, Dave?
Just no getting away from this shit, is there? Oddly enough, I'm just working like client stuff. I haven't really been going around the Facebook groups. Haven't been writing. Haven't been reading. Haven't been pretty much just working. And then it's nice. It's fun. It's nice. Well, and plan for me and the monkey. You know, I got a big day tomorrow, so I'm gonna plan the meal and get the house all pretty and so. But yeah, that's about it, man. I've been staying out of trouble, so just pretty much working, dude.
Cool.
Is there something going on tomorrow?
Yeah, it's called Valentine's. Don't let your wife find out, though. It's kind of like the anniversary birthday thing, so be careful.
Yeah, no, mine's not a problem. All I have to do is dishes, and she's happy.
And the smoker. That's it.
Let me see who was next. Doc, what have you been up to this week?
This week I've been fighting with my biggest client. Had an agency, which I was able to avoid interfacing directly with. And now they were not happy with that agency, so rather than replacing them, they've added another agency. So I've got 3 agencies between me and the ultimate client. And it's just, you know, you send them something and they go through trying to get it approved. And you get it back, so you make the edits, you make the changes, you make the recommendations, and then they pass it through another loop. And I actually
still own a gun, right?
Hit the 7th.
You might need it at some point.
Hit the 7th one on one project yesterday, and I finally I sent my original client an email. I said, you know what, this ain't happening anymore. You know, we're going to go back the way it was, or you're going to find somebody else, or I'm going to triple the rate. I didn't get an answer back on that yet. Let's see which way it goes.
See, this is why I just charge by time, and then whatever the client does that ends up costing more time, great, I get paid. I'm fine.
Well, and it actually also teaches them. Like I've always found once they see that like e-calls and everything else is itemized in there, it tends to cut down on those emails and crap a lot. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Steve.
Oh, geez. Last week was the week of the random surprise product launch, and this week it's the random surprise. I turned off the landing pages because we wanted to update them. Oh, should we turn off the ads for that?
Yeah. You can understand their confusion. That's such a tricky question.
You know, it's like I called them Monday morning and said, "Why did you turn off all those pages? We had ads running to them." And they're like, "Oh, well, we wanted to update those pages." It's like, okay, that's not how you do this.
I think we need. We got to start a new hangout called SEO Group Therapy. We just sit around and bitch about our clients for like an hour a week. You know, it's like group therapy. Just go around the room and everyone just bitches. You
know, the worst part of it is one of the pages they turned off is one of the 5 top links in their top navigation, and they didn't bother to change the navigation. So I'm looking at all the 404s just for people clicking the link, trying to get to the conversion. It's like, what? Okay, here's a new invoice, and fix this.
Yeah, we can hand you little dolls. Show me where you'd like to see the client's contract. Terry, what have you been up to this week?
Oh, this week I've been working on an audit and writing up some structured data for products. First time I've had to work with quantitative value. Interesting. Conflicting information, of course, on how you put the unit right. Like you run it through Google's test tool, and it says that to put a value around the inches is incorrect, but you read elsewhere where it's correct to have it there, and it makes more sense because before when I was doing offers, I found with the price, same kind of deal where there was not a lot of information on how you did the US.
Yeah.
And it all
you kind of got to figure it out, and once you know it, until Google change it.
Well, Google says it's okay for now, but it's something that I'll keep an eye on, if you know what I mean.
I mean, this is the thing. It's yet another thing that is evolving as we go along. You know, there's new schema being added all the time. One of the things I really like about schema is the fact that anyone can add to it, and if enough people support that addition, it can eventually become core. But it's an extensible language.
Yeah. I was not a big fan at the beginning. I just saw it as SEOs make work projects. Then somebody who works for search engines explained to me why it was a big deal. Machine readable being the operative language. When I thought of it in those terms, then I said, oh, this is long term. I'm definitely going to start implementing it and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's been keeps me busy.
It's one of those things I say, go into with your eyes open. Bear in mind that, you're doing the extra work so that Google can teach the search engine to recognize it for all the people who didn't bother. You are the learning set, the training set for the algorithm to get better at recognizing entities on its own. But
haven't we always just talked to the spam team?
All of that, always. Even writing better titles in the old days, same reason you're doing it, to help make it easier for them to find your stuff. But here's something that was very interesting. Dave and I interviewed the SEO from Best Buy. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. That was like 5 years because of that stuff back then.
Yeah, he was one of the first merchants that we could find of any size that had implemented it. And what he said was a lot of other search entities were giving them more attention because they had that machine readable language on the site. So it does increase visibility. And for me, that's what my job really is to increase visibility on the search engines. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
After all, part of the reason that we do websites in the first place is to put the information out there, even for people we haven't thought of. Yeah, it's there for the customers, but it's also there for somebody to recommend to his auntie, or you know, we never know exactly who's going to use it. But by being out there and being accessible, more people can use it. People can surprise us, and any kind of data, any kind of addition we're making to our site is a bit like that.
Yeah, there's more and more.
And there's no lack of things we've chased over the years that went away too. I mean, there's some things that we've chased that went away, but that is our job essentially, is staying on top of that kind of stuff, you know. And
yeah, part of the assessment process is to look at sustainability. Like, was it sustainable to spam in the keyword tag? No, and that was evident after 6 months when we all started talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Blair, what have you been up to this week?
Well, currently I'm running 2 link juice tests to test the quality of 2 different sites. I took on a new member of staff, and I'm also dealing with a new music client. How about yourself?
Oh, I've had a relatively quiet week. Relatively. I've had the
I've only seen about 4 or 5
level.
posts this long from you this week. You're right. It is quiet. It's Tuesday. By now, there should be at least another book written. So, yeah, very quiet, Ammon. Very quiet. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, that's it.
I'm busy with client work, head down for a day. I show up on Facebook this morning. I walk around a couple of groups going, they got this. Fucking, I'm out to work.
That's it.
I mean, that's quiet for you.
Been 2 mega length threads that have been going on. Was usually there's half a dozen. But yeah, it's been quite a week. I had the plumber round a little while ago. There was a leak, and then to fix that, he ended up shutting off the kitchen sink for a while. So I'm without water in the kitchen, and God knows how long that's going to be like that now until he gets the new parts in. How difficult is it to find the tap?
Yeah, it's just
Who knows?
Ammon making. I just got this disgust making tea and taking a shower at the same time.
Damn nearly, yeah. It's fine, except you know the awkward bit is doing the washing up. Getting water with jugs, no problem at all. But filling up a whole sink that's big enough to do the dishes in, because the bathroom sink is not, you know, yeah, not easy. I'm not doing the washing up.
Tell that got off for a day or 2. That's when you run out to the store, grab paper plates, styrofoam cups. You're done.
Nah, I can't be doing it.
That's what every time Tanya tells me it's my week to do the dishes. That's exactly what happens around here. So.
Yeah. I know how that happens. So, what has been the biggest stuff you've seen going around this week? This week seems to me to be the link discussion week. And I know
that seems to be almost every week, though. You know what I mean? Like, we're fighting that battle constantly, you know. And again, someone, you know, trying to rank brain to fucking links. And it's just, you know, there's just seems like a handful of big red button topics that just keep going around. And it just seems directionless. So many people are so directionless. They don't, you know, I'm not, you know, I know it's like, I've seen Steve do it, I've seen you do it, but it's that old, there's probably, and I'm pretty sure John Mueller does it a fair bit. Are you telling me that you've got no other SEO things you could be doing for your client right now? Like, is this all you've got to do is sit around worried about where to get this, you know, have you literally done everything else? Is that all you have left? Like I don't even start to worry about that stuff till everything else is locked down tighter and crap. You know what I mean? Like, and I doubt most of these guys, I think that's the first thing they're doing, not the last thing they're doing, you know?
I think, you know, the general topic of links, yeah, it is important that people get it right. You know, it's right up there with content. When we had that Q&A, you know, the 2 first parts of the algorithm are content and links. Now, all right, that wasn't saying anything. That was the guy saying, oh, the 2 big things are on page and off page. No, really? We've never heard that.
Really? Yes.
Right.
Well,
Rank brain is the 3rd most important signal.
Yeah, that was the worst thing that could ever said. But that's just a smoke thing, because they knew that there's no way like 99.999% of the SEOs are going to get that. So they just put that out there to keep everyone busy. Just to keep them
like you said, you know, yeah, it's the 3rd most important behind everything on page and everything off page. What does that?
Well, yeah. Well, come on.
And Do you know what? That's right. That there is what you've got on your site. There is what the web has pointing towards and talking about your site, and
then there's how Google treats
the search engine is doing to process the query different.
Well, if he was smart, he would have said, just to mess everyone up, he would have just said, those are the only 3 things we do. Now you go figure it out. You know.
But links are the thing people still honestly seem to struggle with the most. Gareth Dane put up a little survey a while ago asking, people what SEO tasks do they struggle with, and of course links by far came out as the number 1.
Yeah, I think it was almost, he said, what's the one you do last, the one that's least, and again, I'll agree with that, because literally I'm doing everything else first. You know what I mean? I'm dealing with the on-site, I'm dealing with the competitors, I'm dealing with the content strategy. The last thing I'm really going to get around to is going to be that. You know what I mean? And so I remember that thread. Yeah, most of the people really did agree with that. Yeah.
I don't think of links last either, because it's that thing we're always talking about, content to attract links. You've got to be thinking about link attraction, not link building, and therefore it should be right up there with the what am I going to put in my site is what am I going to put in my site to make people want to link to it, to talk about it, to think this is important enough to recommend to others. We've got to be thinking of that up front, and then if that hasn't worked or it needs a push, we kind of got to get that perpetual motion machine of links coming in started. We've got to give it that first kickstart. But what really surprised me was seeing how many people said they had no trouble with content creation. Well, if you don't have trouble with content creation, how can you be saying you have trouble with links? Because what's your content for? How do you think you get links? It's through your content. If you're not building content that attracts links, you haven't got your content creation right. You're just spamming out an amount of words. It's not working.
But a lot of people, Ammon, out there are not thinking in terms of earning links. They're thinking in terms of placing.
Well,
so,
no, Doc. It's always that link building or link attracting. Which are you doing?
Exactly. I mean, if you're placing them, then then I think then I would agree with you, Dave, that you need to get your house in order before you invite the guests to the party. But if you're trying to earn them, then I think that, the content certainly has to be right up at the head of the line.
Well, yeah. Well, we had that discussion a while back too with Deborah Mistaller in the Dojo group about foundational link building, right? Talk to your suppliers, talk to associations, this and that. So I'd still consider that link building because you are really making an active effort to go out and get them. Sure. But again, it's not the PBNs, it's not all that other garbage. So yeah, you've got foundational link building, then you've got your content plus PR plus social to attract links.
Yeah. Link building. Go on, Bill.
It's also important to get the citations, the links from business that associate you with an address, so that you do, if your location is important to business coming through your door to your phone, you want to make sure that it does.
Right. So I'm not against link building because I do certain foundational elements and stuff like that and citations. I'm totally active in that. But for the, beyond that, it's not, someone was asked today, like, well, what bloodshed, what's more important? If I go and try and get a link from this authority site, or should I get a bunch of weak ones? How about just not worry about getting them? Because this whole concept of like when you are attracting and using them and you're using content strategy and things like that, you're doing other things for Google. You're establishing authority, you're establishing expertise, and God forbid your money or your life, goddamn query space, that becomes even more important. So why wouldn't you be killing 2 birds with 1 stone? By building that content that says to Google that we're an authority, that we're an expertise in this area, at the same time as attracting links. Like, whereas you just go running out there and get them. Terry, you remember the stuff with the brownies situation, right? These guys didn't ask for a damn link. They sent out free brownies to a bunch of bloggers, and they got penalized. Why? Because bloggers, being what they are, link to them saying the word brownie, all of them almost to a person. And secondly, when we talked to Matt Cutts, he was like, well, Dave, look at these sites. You know, they're blogs that this company's reached out to that, you know, it's everything from duct tape to jewelry. You know, there's no topical relevance here. And so, yes, that looks spammy to us. And I'm like, dude, I trust me, these guys did none of this on purpose. He's like, we don't care. It's not, but that's the way it looks. You know, so you can shoot yourself in the foot even when you think you're doing outreach the right way, because it's to a bunch of blogs that are topically, you know, all over the place. And the relevance.
And the shame of it in a situation like that is, well, it was actually a brilliant little piece of marketing, you know?
Oh yeah, dude, these guys are in the world freaking Guinness World Book of Records for the biggest cappuccino or some crap like that. You know, they were one of the giveaways to Oprah. It's under your seat, and you get one, and you get one. Like, they had a great PR department. You know what I mean? They just kind of screwed the pooch in this one, and actually got penalized by no malicious intent of their own. You know?
Yeah, I was also at the height of the clamp down.
Yeah. Well, plus. Yeah, well, plus when I first talked to Matt, remember his first line? Oh, these guys. Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean these guys? Oh, Jim. He goes, the next line in Matt's email was, Jim Boykin talked to me about these guys in 2006. I was like, oh, yeah, we're on the radar, apparently. So, yeah, it went badly. But anyways, we got to fix. But, you know, Matt literally said, you know what I mean? Like, it's because of the type of blog that they ended up on. And again, they did not ask for a link. They did not. They just said, you know, if you want to review it, you review it. If you don't, you don't. And they got a bunch of exact match anchors, and it was brownies. But the blogs they picked outreach was the real problem, because the topical diversity in these blogs was all over the map, you know. So.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of SEOs understand how Google looks at a blog. They just don't get it.
That's it. A news site like CNN, a news site like CNN and New York Times can be topically all over the place. A blog, not so much. You know?
Right. That's what I mean. You know, when you're going to a site and it's supposedly a good site, and you see a post about a medication, a post about some amusement park, payday loans, you know, all the.
Oh yeah, what's it going to look like to any of us? Any of us are going to look at that in our business, go, oh no, that's all paid, man. That's all placed. Come on, you know.
Right, but a lot.
So Google looks at it the same way, man.
Stuff works. A lot of people think that stuff works. PBN, same thing. They don't understand that Google just sits on PBNs literally for years. They just don't learn.
Terry, could you say honeypot?
Yeah. That's literally, and they don't understand that, because most of them come in after Penguin, and you know, after the a lot of people didn't see what happened around 2012.
2010 to 2012, really, I guess, you know.
The
content parts actually started in 11 or even maybe the end of 10.
Even that was hard to understand. Remember the one site you and I talked to Matt about when he gave us a hint that it was Panda and stuff? You and I couldn't figure it out. That's why I talked to him. Like, we always try to figure it out ourselves first. But then, you know, we talked to him.
It was a news site that was putting articles.
So yeah, we, you know, when Matt told us, he just gave us a little cryptic "think panda."
So, that was all he had to say, and that told us a ton.
Yeah, we know what to do from there.
Well, then you start looking at other sites, and you say, "Oh, okay, now I understand." Basically, with the changes of Hummingbird and stuff, you can't be topically all over the place on a page. They want to see it pretty uniform.
Well, yeah.
So it's easy to understand.
I'm going to go against that, because I am the king of little off-topic references where, you know, as you know, I throw in little anecdotes and stories, and often those link out to something else and that talks about that thing, which is completely different from the main topic, but really illustrates a certain aspect of it in a different way.
Yeah, but I'm going to guess there's a basket to it. You know what I mean? I would guess, Tim, there's,
right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm thinking there's more of a basket as far as the tags go, the categories go, and things of that nature. And again, the authority, like, you know, CNN can get away with talking about news, humor, and a whole bunch of shit on a page, but you know, I would think there's probably obviously other elements that play into it. You know what I mean? So
there were also like you'd be on a registering a business page, right? And there'd be a list of links to, say, tax information. So those are on topic but off topic at the same time. On topic to the audience, not so much to Google. They find that confusing. Are you talking about taxes, or you know what I mean? That's how it was we kind of interpreted what he was telling us.
That's one of the reasons why you choose a specific legal structure, because of how you pay taxes based upon each of those. You pay taxes differently with an S Corp than an LLC. Unless you choose the S Corp election for an LLC.
See how confusing it is, Bill?
Right.
I found that really interesting that he said that Google was confused. Those were the words that really said it for me.
Well, that's why structured data exists in schema. So
yes,
you can avoid that type of confusion, right?
Disambiguation.
Yeah.
To an extent, I'm still seeing that in content, the page can cover lots of different things, but I think where you might be getting close to the line is when you are dealing with disambiguation issues, i.e. where one thing applies to one meaning and another thing applies to another meaning. I think that would be a problem. But as long as they are clearly different topics and the paragraph is around them, I don't think there's a problem.
Oh, I agree. If they're in what I call kind of in context of words so they can figure it out, right? These were just lists of posts on a topic that of interest to the audience, but not really relevant to that particular topic on that page.
Yeah. And I still think people massively undervalue the links out. That who you link to is massively important for how well you can do, because it can really change how likely you are to get bookmarks. Let's face it, we've all bookmarked and linked to pages, not just for what's on that page, but for what it linked to as well. You know, let's face it, the only real reason Bill writes about all these patents is it helps him remember it, and he always knows how to find a link to the patent because it's there in his blog post.
Yeah, I'll often bookmark an article, but know that I'll just use that article to go to the site because I don't want 15, entries in my bookmarks. They're like 2 pages now. Really don't need a lot more. Gets hard to manage them.
Yep. Links are one of the pieces of content that people really forget when they're talking about content marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're hugely important. Links are great pieces of content. After all, why is Google so successful? What does Google provide that makes people use it thousands of times a day? Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know. They link to blue ones. I know this answer. Didn't even have to ask the monkey.
But, how often do you hear people mentioning outgoing links when they're talking about their link building strategy? But they should be. And it's not about reciprocation. It's about adding value. It's about giving people somewhere to go next, something to do next.
And
Well, you
that's
remember, like,
enough.
what, 10, 15 years ago when we used to actually talk about good, bad neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods, and you had those tools that would do the hub finding and stuff. Because, yeah, you know, part of it's who you are linking to and what you're linking to also helps establish that authority. Like, are you, from your article or your post or whatever, are you linking out to other authoritative sources on a topic matter that other people are to, that helps build your own authority and trustability, you know? So, yeah,
that was what my first website was, just a list of sites that I found interesting or useful for SEO and web development.
Me too. It was called a blog roll, and apparently Google scared the crap out of all of us. So stop doing that.
Yep. One of the problems with link building is that people are just so blinkered in how they're approaching it. Like I say, you know, oh, I've got to get links to this. How do I get links? And they are literally thinking of anchor tags. So, you know, that's all they're thinking. And
it's still that same big red button, though, isn't it, Ammon? Like, you know.
Well, yeah, and often the answer isn't like, well, look, the way you get links to that is you don't. What you do is you create a wonderful piece of content that everyone wants to link to, and that links to the thing you want because you're the sponsor, or that's what it was created for. And they completely miss having that middleman page that does the job of making something more linkable.
Whenever anybody talks about link building to me, I always tell them the only links that matter are the ones where your customers are.
Yeah.
If you find out where your customers hang out, be there. And then your customers will automatically link to your stuff. Like when I work with the jewelry stores, I tell them to get their butts out to the jewelry forums and the groups on Facebook and all those other places where the people who buy jewelry hang out. And the rest will take care of itself, because even if the link, you know, if every link bumps your SEO up just a teeny tiny little fraction, that's wonderful. But if that link sends you a paying customer,
that's beautiful.
That beats SEO hands down every single time. And unfortunately, people don't think of that as SEO. It's like, no, that's exactly what it is, but it gets frustrating.
Yeah, we had a bit of a discussion today about no follow links. And, you know, to me, look, a no follow on a good page in context that is going to send visitors is worth 1,000 do follow links that aren't going to send visitors.
Yeah, I also don't believe no follow means no equity either. Google can do whatever they want with links internally. Yeah, don't fall victim to that. Look for audience. Seek audience, not right.
Well, exactly, because the audience are the people who are going to drop real links. If you're not getting people, you're just creating fake links. If you're going for where people are, you're going to get real links, real citations.
Yeah. Audience have credit cards too. Search engines. Search engines have never bought anything from me.
Dude, that is my favorite line, and I keep using it year after year, dude. And I always credit you with it, but I always go, this is my partner Terry always says, Google ain't never bought a damn thing from me. And that's it, man. Oh, and Steve, I'm not gonna run too far off talking, but since I'm talking about heroes of life here, and you're all sitting around, got a client right now losing her mind, Steve. Actually, one of the ones Ammon sent a while back that I'm trying to help and stuff. But it became evidently clear that it's one of those situations where everything was in the Google basket. You know what I mean? No revenue is coming from anywhere else. So, you know, just put it out there, folks, and I'll leave it alone. If all your income is coming from Google, you might want to reassess your marketing plan. You know, just putting it out there. So, because when that starts to go a little bit south, then, you know, your whole world goes to crap. And, you know, I was talking to her yesterday, Steve, and I was bringing that up. I was like, you know, I learned that 15, 16 years ago. Steve always, that's his mantra, man. Don't put everything in there.
I've seen enough people lose their businesses and their homes simply because Google made what they consider a zero-sum change to the algorithm that only affected outliers. Well, guess what? Those outliers had homes. They had families. They were doing good things. And you changed the rules out from under them. And since they aren't in it every single day, they didn't know the rules had changed. And it cost them everything. So.
Yeah, well, she's lost about 300 grand in business since last year. And this is it, because it was all locked in this one spot. So now I'm trying to broaden her whole marketing approach. So, I'll get her back fixed and everything. But moving forward, once she does get fixed, we're not keeping all the eggs in this basket. We're going to have mailing lists. We're going to have a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And, we're going to diversify this beast.
On that one note, Google aren't expecting you to keep up. They're not expecting you to have played specifically by the rules in the first place. Remember, they keep telling you, don't do all these things to trick the engine and to work with the algorithm. Have a business that will survive in any algorithm. And that's what we are trying to do with most of our
clients.
But
the problem with this poor lady, man, she's got maybe a couple thousand. They're all legit, so there's no, no link spam. Nobody attacked her. Her site really hasn't changed, since this all went down on her last year. That's why she's so confused, losing her mind. Like, I get emails this long every day from her, and Google just changed how it was doing things, and she got swept up in the mess. And that's the way it's going to be sometimes.
Google keep changing how they're doing things. They are still researching. Information retrieval, as we always say, it's a very, very young science. Information retrieval and web search is its baby brother. It's not out of diapers yet. There are going to be huge changes.
One of the big things that they've changed, and they change on a fairly regular basis, is how they classify certain types of businesses. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they decided that people searching for jewelry were looking for local, and jewelry became a local search instead of a global search. And for those people who were making their living selling custom jewelry or jewelry in general across the entire country, it wiped them out. I mean, and they still do fine locally, and they dominate locally, but their national exposure has all been lost to the big chains. So it starts to sound like, big brands are the ones that, this was made for, but that's because the big brands are in.
It's an unintended consequence by the classification, right? Yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
It doesn't change the fact that it cost them, significant amount of money of their online revenue.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything wrong. Google just changed the way they rank things.
Yep, and it often is, that you've accidentally hit on a particular strength that Google at that time is, ranking quite highly, and then it changes something, and that one thing that was really working for you was the only thing you were strong in, and that can suddenly vanish. And this is why, holistic marketing, holistic SEO is the way we always say to go, because that way, when something changes, it doesn't matter, because you're strong in this other thing as well, and you're strong in this other thing, and you're strong in this other thing, because people are going to be changing. There are, hundreds, if not thousands, of scientists constantly working on better ways of measuring things to rank them. They're not all paid to sit around twiddling their thumbs, worshipping at some altar of Larry Page, saying how good PageRank is. They are there to work on better. Because, basically Larry Page would otherwise be thinking, well, why the hell am I employing all of you guys if you can't come up with something better than I did on my own?
But again, it's just a problem. Like, it is such a huge business that, it's obvious that, a lot of the businesses I work with are quite dependent on it, but you got to just have backup of some degree, of some form, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be looking elsewhere to build your audience and to build your leads and your conversions. You get too stuck in that Google hole, and all it takes is one little bump in the road and everything's gone, and that's just, again, that can happen anywhere. My dad, my father had a business with urea formaldehyde. He had like trucks on the road and all the foam and this and that. Then, the government here in Canada said it was cancer causing and made it illegal. And overnight, my dad lost everything. You know what I mean? So, it's not just Google. Those things happen in the real world, So,
yeah.
But you just got to be diversified when it comes to marketing on Google.
It's why, you know, time after time, I keep telling people brand is so important. 80% of your customer base should be brand based. They should be searching for your brand. They should be deliberately looking for your business because they've heard of you somewhere before. It doesn't matter where particularly. But if that isn't happening, if you aren't getting 80% of your actual buyers coming through brand, work harder.
What's the thing? Remember, we used to actually get keywords from Google in the analytics and stuff. I remember whenever I'd see the brand searches go up, I go, okay, what did you guys do? Was it a newspaper? Did you go to a trade show? And they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, because the brand searches just shot through the roof this week.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that's huge. And yeah, for sure, man. Navigational searches.
And, you know, I had this years ago. I worked with an opinions website way back 2001.
Opinions?
They ranked.
Was it opinions?
You couldn't search for anything and they weren't in the top 5. They were like the Wikipedia of their day, especially in the UK. And even then, 80% of the decent traffic was brand-based or direct. People coming back to the site because they've found it once. And this is the whole thing of SEO. SEO should only have to attract each customer once. And they should then come back via brand. And if that's not happening, your marketing plan is probably...
I like, you know, the cohort analysis and some of the other stuff that got in Google Analytics that no one ever seems to talk about. I mean, I do actually go into those new and returning visitors, cohort analysis, all that kind of stuff. I really look at that stuff. And you don't really hear too many conversations about it, that's for sure.
I have seen sites that rank well for brand-related terms that's a problem with, because they're not ranking for the non-brand related terms that they ideally should be.
So you're saying they're not creating new brand followers, they're just feeding off the old ones, or?
They're having people search for their site based upon phrases that they use on TV commercials rather than products that they sell.
Yep. But that still long-term, unfortunately, works. Because sooner or later, people do say, "Oh, I bought from this site," or "Oh, I went to this site," and that's
brand lift. Essentially, that's, you know, it's what's known as brand lift, and that's something everyone tries to do from every form of marketing you're doing. You know, if it's paid or if it's offline or online, brand lift is huge.
If they're a spokesperson or their characters in their commercials change, they lose lots of business. If those are tied to specific contracts with advertising agencies, they could be held hostage by those agencies.
Like Bill the Turtle. When Bill the Turtle went away. Yeah. Yeah.
This is one of the reasons some of the brands I work with, when they're doing brand uplift, and we're talking, this is the times where I will tell a business that they need a blog, and it's not, oh, you need more content, you need fresh content, because that's rubbish. You need good content. How you create it, what format it's in, depends on what you want to achieve with your audience. A blog is where you want to build expertise and brand. And sometimes there we will create personas. We will create members of staff who do the blog who don't exist, so that they can, over time, outsource or get other writers in. There is a clear style listed to each writer.
Your expertise
it means they own them.
Right. Your expertise or your authenticity shouldn't be tied to fictional characters that somebody else owns.
Exactly. But there is no harm in having a Google guy. There is no harm in having a Captain Birdseye, who by now is so old, you know. It's always been a guy with a beard. Look at Colonel Sanders. How many people have played Colonel Sanders over the years? He has changed a lot in looks. I know he's actually got younger in the most recent.
Different characters. Almost every Saturday Night Live is done a commercial as him, I believe.
Right. Reba McEntire is playing him right now.
But this can be a way for companies to have a an authoritative character that they use and to own it and recast for it. You know, think Lassie, most famous dog in the world, and she was played by boy dogs half the time. You know, nobody was really checking. You know, so brands can last, characters can last. The thing is for that character to be consistent. For the value of that character to be consistent, to be in line with the company.
Yeah, what about the guy on Mr. Clean? That goes back to what? Probably the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, but he's a cartoon guy. You can keep him around forever, like Morris the cat. You know what I mean? Like he's like Morris the cat. Your problem because when you got those infomercial guys, Mr. Scrubbin' Dude, and you know when those guys, you know, get in a car accident or something, you're screwed, right? So yeah.
But it is worth thinking about, you know, for any company that intends to scale and size, where the person doing the blog may not be able to scale with it or isn't tied permanently to that company. You know, maybe it is worth thinking of.
Or they can hold you hostage. You know what I mean? Like I used to tell people to create a persona and have your writers write under that persona, because then you own it, right? Because if you let some internal person at your company, then they got you by the nuts. Because if they really become that face and that brand and that voice of the company, they can hold you the next time that contract comes around. You can have some issues, right? So yeah, create a persona, let someone else live behind it and whatever. And well, it's like, you know, like Dear Abby was never Dear Abby. There was a bunch of people that were Dear Abby over the years, and yeah, create that persona and leave it there. You know,
there was a blog post in a well-known SEO magazine online that quoted me, and it was a sponsored blog post by an anonymous author. And I disagreed with their opinion on what they quoted me about. They quoted me about some patent that they misinterpreted. And they don't have comments, so I couldn't respond to it there. I couldn't respond to it on a social network appropriately because there was no author.
Well, speaking of personas, I'm starting to wonder if Neil Patel is actually one. He's never actually existed. He just gets all these other people to write. Somebody created him somewhere and came up with this picture, and you know, just put him out there, and it has other people writing all the content. So he's like the opposite of that.
I know. Let's get this guy in pajamas all over the web.
I noticed the Neil Patel Studios is hiring content creators.
Yeah, you were saying that. Yeah,
so you may see more.
Well, he's become the persona of himself. Like, it's just gotten very convoluted over there, man. I don't know.
But he has missed the point. I mean, this is it. He started off as a real person and then sought to turn himself into a persona that lots of people could write from, but he doesn't have a clearly defined voice that they can all use.
You may have watched too many Hugh Hefner news articles.
Yeah. The smoking jacket does not translate to pajamas. It doesn't.
Well, from now on, I'll be writing under Ono's name. Ono will be now writing about patents and stuff, and you know, that's it. I'm putting his picture up on all my bios, and that's it. Yeah.
Oh, you're seeking to raise your profile then?
Well, I am. You know what I mean? I felt like stepping it up this year, so
get some pajamas to fit Ono. That's what you need.
No, if anybody's interested, my manager is Ammon, so if you think this is a good move, then you know where to send your accolades.
Yeah. Basically, you know, it's the fourth monkey. Spam no evil.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, I'm currently negotiating the rights for all the Monkees tunes from the '60s. You know, that's going to be all our theme songs, and yeah, that's where we're working this. Yeah.
Yeah. The other one that came up in links this week was the old classic. You know, edu domains, the EDUs. did they ever have special weight, blah, blah, blah. And the closest to a thing we got was Jason had a slightly different feeling to me that.
But it was almost saying the same thing as you in a different way, to be honest. Like, I read through it, he's like, I disagree. And then he wrote, and I was like reading his going, okay, no, you kind of almost agreeing with him. You're just saying it slightly. Oh, he had the LSI tool out. That's what happened.
Well, yeah, he was saying that over time, Google had learned to recognize that as a consistently good feature, i.e. in the Bayesian probability things, that .edu tended to be a little bit better in these results, and therefore it was probably a positive correlatory factor. The bit like when they're looking at spam, unfortunately, a .ru is going to make it slightly more likely that it is recognized.
Well, even .infos. Like I read a paper once upon a time, and it was from the error guys in adversarial information retrieval for the folks at home. That's the web spam team. And yeah, they literally were looking at levels of spam on .coms, .nets, .info, and .info tended to come up at the top of the list. Now, does that mean they're devaluing .info domains? No, but it just means they might look a little closer, whatever, you know what I mean? But yeah, the same kind of deal was, I saw, an adversarial information retrieval paper that did that. They looked at various, TLDs and where the spam tended to be. Now, what they do with that's totally different, but yeah, the same thing. Sure, you're going to find .gov's going to have less spam on it, and .edu is going to have less spam on it. Does that mean necessarily that one link is better than another? Not necessarily. Because remember when they used to sell them out of the student accounts, like they were 90, back in the mid 2000s, man, you could buy edu links off every kid who had a bloody little blog on Stanford,
Yeah.
The Microsoft research folks writing for the AlleyWeb project used to choose to write about German domains because they happen to find lots of spam.
In France was like number 2, wasn't it? Like France was number 2, I think, or something like that.
Well, they noticed with the German domains that people were buying domains and then adding subdomains to them, hyphenated subdomains. And they found that the more hyphens in the subdomain, the spammier a site tended to be. There's a direct correlation.
Yeah.
And it's because they didn't want to pay for more than one domain.
That's Germans for you.
It is more efficient to do it on one domain.
Oh no, man! I still remember Terry and I were sitting in a meeting with the guys from Search Metrics. God, what's his name? This CEO guy. Anyways, he says, boys, I would like to tell you a joke. He says, these kids today always with the video games, all the time playing the video games, shooting people. I remember when I was a kid, we used to go outdoors and shoot people. You're just like, no, still too soon, bro. Still too soon. No.
Yeah. Always going to be a bit too soon.
Yeah, until a couple of generations have died, and yeah, still a little too soon, man.
Yeah, but even if you talk to German SEOs, they'll tell you that it's hard there if you're trying to do legitimate link building. We had a few guys in the dojo. They tended to just go after the technical stuff.
Yeah, sometimes the soft skills aren't as much appreciated. Germany does have a high regard for the technical and the exacting and the engineered over the soft skills, which can make it difficult for a client to buy into doing more creative things. I remember years ago, lots of Germans that came over here. I used to hang around with a few. They were amazed at our television adverts. My God, these are so funny. What's going on? Their ads just didn't have that kind of humor. They were much more, practical about the product, and that was that. And yeah, they would be delighted waiting for the next ad break on TV because they were laughing their socks off. I think sometimes that does play into certain countries. There are certain countries where the mindset is different, and therefore getting links is harder to get the client to buy into. And also, other webmasters are less likely to be using links because they're focusing more on their own thing. The thing that, you know, I was quoted as coining once was link hoarding, where, you know, you try and get all the links inwards and not link out.
I bet you
I know
if you got a German website, that would be tough to find other German-speaking websites to link with you. Not a lot of them out there, probably.
I know that both Yahoo and Google were having a hard time doing well in South Korea because they ended up finding out that there weren't too many websites in South Korea. So if they wanted to do well in search, they would have to do something like Naver did, which was to give people a chance to create their own content. And Naver focused primarily upon helping people find user-generated content,
yep,
which Yahoo hadn't hit upon, hadn't realized, nor Google.
We are coming up to the top of the hour, so we don't have to rush too much for once. Let's start the round of what we're up to in the coming week. Bill, what have you got planned?
I'm going to try to catch up on a big long post I'm writing about media consumption history and how content that you might listen to can influence your search results.
Interesting stuff. I must admit, most of that at the moment strikes me as mostly forward-looking rather than something they're using right now. But I do keep up with all of that because, you know, I would say we've got to be looking 3 to 5 years ahead, because with some of the big brands, when you're creating the strategy, that's how long it's you know, that's how long they want their plan to be considering.
Well, the search engines are looking at Roku and Fire and Netflix and so on and seeing what you're choosing from those to watch.
Yeah.
And they can influence your results based upon those things. If they keep a record of your what you view, if those sites leave, go out of business, stop providing the information, they have it they're in their hands. So they're future planning with it.
Yeah. So guys and girls in the audience, anytime you hear somebody moaning about the amount of porn in search, you know why they're seeing it all. They know they're
I'm sorry. Why would I whine about that? I'm sorry. It sounds like a good thing. Okay, never mind. See, this is why my wife never watches these shows. I can get away with that. But,
it almost happened twice, but there was a guy recently who was talking to me, and he's one of those ones with the bookshelf behind him fully stacked. I was joking about this bookshelf, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, it's just a green screen like yours." And I said, "No, I can tell it's not because you left a porn magazine up there." And he panicked. No, I'm only kidding. Who has magazines these days? The internet, you know. Blair, what are you up to in the coming week, sir?
I'm currently playing through using a quick through system to improve my site traffic. So far, I'm able to move from page 3 to page 1 with my method.
Cool. Are you just improving the amount of click-through you're getting, or is this, you know, the amount of depth they go through your own site, the click-throughs within your site?
Basically, it's simply all I'm doing is changing titles and just working out what's the best terms to get most people coming to the site. It's basically moving me from page 3 to page 1 quite easy.
Yeah.
Without me doing any
titles, descriptions still does matter in the long term, and it can make a difference for a few positions, but I always still kind of think, right, get the content right first, get the content that's going to appeal to people, get the links, and then worry about the title. I know some people, you know, oh no, the title's everything, man. You spend half the time on the title, Well, fine, but make it the second half of the time, not the first half. Just giving something a fancy box is not the way to sell the contents. I know sometimes it works, but it doesn't last long. Dave, what are you up to this week?
At the moment, I'm unmuting. Well, same as I was at the beginning of the show. Except now I've decided, by popular demand, I'm going to probably start an affiliate website for Depends. Getting lots of traction on my graphic today, so I'm thinking I've got a big future ranking for Depends and selling lots of them. Apparently,
Do you know what?
It seems my demographic is perfect. Aging SEO marketers so yeah, apparently I can sell lots of this stuff. It looks like.
Yeah. I'm telling you now, making fake props that people could buy to have in the background of their videos and stuff would probably.
Hey, I'm not kidding. There was this other group. There's mostly like small business people, and this one lady, and she was like, had her camera on, and she was trying to test it out and say, "What do you guys think?" And this and that. And she had this really blank wall behind her, and I said, "Put something interesting there." I mean, like even Tanya, after I said that, she was like, "Yeah, because you get bored of staring at the face, you start looking behind them, and it'll create conversation in the comments. And what is that behind you, or what is it? Literally, it's actually a thing, folks. Like like Steve, we get to look around. Like a year ago, Steve's background was like all this drywall, and so we get to comment on it every time. The other day, people were asking, why the hell does Terry have a mattress behind him? Things behind you work. It's a thing. It's part of my new marketing program. I'll be having a course released, and I'll be doing lots of YouTube videos about it. So send $19.95. Never mind.
$7 ebook, man. That's your lead. $7 ebooks.
I mean, Dave, you know nothing about SEO because you haven't got a course.
I know.
I honestly, I've been hearing this more and more recently, and do you know what? I've got a bugbear about a lot of these courses anyway, because it seems like most of them are trying to embody the second line of the old saw. Those who can't teach.
Yeah,
there's an awful lot of never-rans who are selling courses in how to do SEO that they couldn't do.
Well, what's nice, you can create courses by going into Facebook groups and asking the same question in every group, and then here's your course.
I know, and then you could do a live video, Steve, and every time someone asks you a question, you go, "Well, I wrote about this over here," and because you never have to answer a question yourself because you don't know it, so you got to go and reference material that you stole somewhere. That happens too. I hear. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird about that.
Yeah, sometimes they're just trying to gain the click-throughs for the click-through rankings as well. Even though they could say
big bucks.
Gets more traction and activity on the page, and they think Google's looking at their logs. It doesn't quite work.
I hope they're looking. Next time Google's looking at my logs, I'm going to push its head right in the toilet and flush it. Oh wait, that's totally different, right? Okay. Cool.
Steve, sorry to bring you in at the moment of logs and flushing, but
that's perfectly. That's the story of my life around here. This week, I'm working on bringing in a new consulting client. It should be a lot of fun. They're looking at investing in a new business, and so I had to do something that's a little not SEO and more business construction related, which is always fun to do. Mm-hmm. And I'll be doing all their background audits to make sure that what they're buying is actually what they're getting, because the amount of money they're talking is significant. So I've seen that happen more often than once when people have bought websites and then go, well, we thought we were buying 3 million visits a month. So, well, you were, but 2.7 million were bots. So we've got that going on this week. I hope to have the first draft outline done on my book done by the end of the week. And then we start, it's spring construction season starting around the farm. So the next barn starts going up. Hopefully by Friday, we'll get started on that. So in other words, just a boring, lazy week.
Yeah. But at least you'll get a few drives of the tractor in, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Let's face it, it makes it worthwhile, doesn't it?
And for the record, I'm not doing it this week because it's all Steve's fault. And that's it. He just told me to stop bugging people on the internet. Steve said, Dave, shut up.
I didn't say shut up. I said take a break.
And I have been, actually. It's working, Steve. I go crazy for a couple of weeks, then I take a week off, and then I go crazy. You know, it's working quite well. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That way.
Yep.
You should come down here and spend some time. Every day starts off by feeding the cows at 7 a.m.
I like it. That's how I grew up, actually, dude. It was horses, but I grew up that way, man. Yeah.
We were doing that this morning, moving them to a new pasture. Always fun. Always fun around here.
Man,
Terry,
I wish I
what are you
still
up to?
had that blog, SEO bullshit. I could actually get a real picture of you.
Terry?
Just, you know, continuing on the audit, probably doing the part I like doing, competitor analysis. So I can see the look on their face when none of the people they think are their competitors turn out to be their competitors.
Yeah. Yeah. People do get such a blinkered view sometimes. Remember, one of the things I read in the forum this week was a guy who their client was being beaten for. It was a real estate agent, and their brand name, real estate, was being dominated by somebody with a bad review of them. I must admit, when you're beaten on your own brand and business terms, there is something seriously wrong with your strategy.
I know the thread you're talking about, and there's got to be more to that, you know, and I couldn't help thinking there had to be more than that. We didn't have the whole story there, because that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the one it reminded me of was years ago, major financial company brand, back in the days of, you know, the AOLsucks.com and stuff like that. It was their brand name, complaints.com, was what somebody had registered. They'd been through 3 rounds of legal battles and had finally, 50,000 spent in legal fees to that point, had finally won the domain name. Not the content. The guy's allowed to keep the site up, but because the domain name included their brand name, he had to surrender that at the bought value. But yeah, the site stayed up. The thing is, we looked at this, and its search volume was about 5 per week, 4 of which was, you know, the director of the company seeing if it was still there. The guy wasn't even checking his own rankings as often as they were checking it for him, and
yeah,
I wondered partly if one of the reasons this company, you know, this negative review is ranking so high is, are you giving it click-through data?
I had a client years ago who was, I don't even want to say what niche he was in, was caught in the corporate offices with having a hooker party. And it cost him his job, which wasn't too bad because, you know, he had a lot of money at the time. The problem was getting a new job because anybody who searched for him brought up the hooker party. So it was making it really hard for him to get a job. So yeah, I could see where having your name or your brand associated with something negative is a bad thing, especially in the modern day and age. The key is to obviously not do the bad things, or to be in an industry where the bad things are considered no big deal. But sometimes these could be
the hardest things for the young now is that, you know, we go through teenage. Teenage is a natural stage where we try and get all the stupid things out of our system. But these days they don't go away. You know, they do tend to stick on the internet. And I know, Bill, your company has helped with cleaning up people's reputations in the past, hasn't it? Where they've been to a good college, but they can't get a job because their profile has some history there they wouldn't want. And it is something I see increasingly people are having to watch out for. I think the EU's regulation on Google that it has to forget negative stories about people after a certain amount of time is probably a very good thing.
I believe we've gotten phone calls from people in that situation and walk them through how to be a little bit more proactive in having a positive profile. You know, building social profiles that use their own name, where they don't show pictures of things that they don't want people to see. on Twitter and other network sites.
We are out of time for this week. We will all be back next week, I'm sure, for another episode. But I will leave you with Arthur Moorhead, who just jumped in on the YouTube version of the page and said, "A hooker party? Boy, did I jump in at the right time." Take care, folks. See you again.
Thank you.